We're going live. We're live. Yeah. So I'm going to give like I think 5 extra minutes for people to join because I just sent like a reminder. So like, yeah. So I think we have four persons already joined. Joined. Yeah. Okay. So I have this technical writing community or like technical writing group on Discord. It's a small group anyways, so I think I should also send them like a reminder because I know that some of them wanted to attend. So let me do that real quick as well. Yep. Okay, done. I think we have more persons joining in now. Hi, we have someone in the comment section saying hi. Hi, Annie. Hi, Annie. Yeah. So we have 5 minutes. I think we can chat before the 5 minutes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So okay. Hi Tiga. Hi, 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 hi. Hi Tiga. Um yeah. Hi James. Hi James. Hey, yep, 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 yep. Hi Victoria. Hi Victoria. So essay saying hi Robert.
Hey guys. Hey everyone.
Yeah. Okay. So we've gotten like ten persons have joined so far.
Hmm.
So we have like I think we have 3 more minutes and then we'll start. Yeah. Hi Benedicta. Hi. Hi. Yeah. Let me send one more reminder. So I have this other tech community that I'm a part of. It's actually from my university. So we have this tech club or tech community. So I also shared the flyer with them. So I think I will send them the reminder as well because I know some persons wanted to attend. So let me just do that real quick as well. We have 3 more minutes. So yeah. Um, Hi guys, we're live. Yeah. Okay. Um, so we have 2 more minutes. Hi, Karen. So Karen is saying, "Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here." I don't know, Robert. Can you see the comment section from your end?
I'm sorry?
Can you see the comment section from your end? I don't know if you can.
Oh, I can.
Nice. So yeah. So Karen is saying, "Good morning," and she's saying she's happy to be here.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So hi, Karen. Hi, Karen. And Ifure is saying, "Hi, Robert."
Hey everyone.
Yeah, we have 2 more minutes before we go live. Welcome, everyone. We have 2 minutes before we go live. I'm waiting for more persons to join, then we'll go live. Okay, we have 1 more minute now. Victoria is saying, hello, Robert. So good to see you.
Oh, thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Mm, yeah. Okay. So in 1 minute, we'll start. Okay. Mm. So this is actually a coffee chat, and we're not like having coffee. So I don't know how that's. It's hilarious that we're not having coffee, and it's a coffee chat. Did you get that?
Well, I don't drink coffee, but I do have my Coke. Same
Cool, cool.
same.
I actually
It,
had coffee this morning.
it's the
So
same effect, just fizzier.
what? What did you say?
Having Coke instead of coffee does the same thing with
Okay, like
caffeine. It's
caffeine,
just
right?
fizzier.
It's just that one has more sugar than the other. Like Coke has
Ah,
more sugar.
this is
Yeah,
Coke Zero.
yeah. I think Coke gives you more energy, and then I think coffee makes you more apt. I guess. Okay. So we're starting now. So hi everybody. I think we have 15% that have joined so far. So we'll probably have more persons join later on. But let's begin. It's 10 minutes. 10 minutes gone. I think we just want to spend like 45 minutes to an hour. So we don't want to waste so much time. So we're getting right into it. What's our agenda for today? But before that, I would love to introduce you guys to Robert Delwood. Okay, Tega is saying he's not a coffee person either. So wow, okay. I love coffee. I actually love the taste of coffee, but I'm also a Coke person. But I'm less Coke and more coffee because less sugar is better. Okay. James said Coke Zero's a oh I think Zero Coke. Zero Coke is do you know Zero Coke, Robert? Have you had Zero Coke before?
Yeah, I've got it now.
Oh, like Zero Coke.
Well,
I think
actually, this is the store brand, but it's
oh
pretty close.
Oh, okay. So he said that Zero Coke is a cool choice, Robert, and he thinks he prefers coffee though. So we have two persons that prefer coffee, me and James, and then two persons that hate coffee or dislike coffee. So hi Henry. So we're starting now. So I would love to introduce Robert Delwood. So he's a programmer, a writer, and a programmer writer. So that means he straddles the two worlds of software development and technical writing. So Robert specializes in developer to developer documentation, notably API reference guides. So he's in Chicago's legal community, but formerly with that's NASA, NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is it Houston?
Houston.
Houston. Sorry, is it Houston? Houston. Yeah. Did you get me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for
No,
having me.
I'm not done. I'm not done. I'm
Oh,
asking if I pronounced Houston correctly. Is it Houston or Houston? Is my feedback low? I think my feedback is low on your end.
it's a little bit low. So
Oh,
if I ask you to repeat a question occasionally, that's why.
okay, okay. But I don't know if you got me. I pronounce Houston. Is it Houston? Is it Houston? What's the correct pronunciation?
Houston.
Oh, Houston. Okay. So I'm going to repeat that. So Robert Delwood is a programmer, writer, and programmer writer. That means he straddles the two worlds of software development and technical writing. He specializes in developer to developer documentation, notably API reference guides. So he's in Chicago's legal community, but formerly with NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. So he's had Zoom meetings with people who weren't even on Earth. Wow. Okay. That's mind blowing. So, with more than 18 years of experience, he recognizes that documentation is easy and great documentation is hard. He encourages others to up their documentation game. So, wow. So it's actually a privilege to have you here, Robert. Like I'm speaking with a superstar. So it's really a privilege to have you here, Robert, and I'm really grateful and thankful that you agreed to do this with me. So yeah, so I'm going to go straight into the agenda for today. So if you see me looking down, don't worry, I'm looking at my phone. So I have the agenda on my phone. So though, yeah, right. So okay. So yeah, so we've done the introduction. So basically what we're covering in today's session, or should I say today's coffee chat, because it's more of a casual conversation, but still very informative. So we're going to cover like an introduction to API documentation. So if you're hearing API documentation for the first time, don't worry, you're going to like get to know what it is right by the end of the conversation, and then we'll get to know about Robert's career. I'm saying robots like robots. Sorry, Robert's career, Robert's career path and background. We'll get to know about the essential skills that you need to have for API documentation, because basically our theme for this coffee chat, or the topic for this coffee chat, is building a successful career in API documentation, right? So if you're here today, you're probably interested in how you can, build a successful career in API documentation, and that's the focus for this coffee chat. So yeah, we'll also cover challenges that you may encounter in API documentation, maybe like tips that we can learn from Robert, because he has so many years of experience, over 18 years of experience doing API documentation as a programmer as well as a technical writer. So I mean, he has a wealth of experience to share with us today. Then probably discuss, if we still have time, probably discuss some career opportunities that you have in technical writing as an API technical writer, right? Someone that specializes in API documentation. And yeah, then we'll probably have like a Q&A session. So yeah, so feel free to shoot your questions in the comment section. I think Robert also has access to the comment section, but I can see the comment section, so we'll always get to the questions. So during the conversation, you don't have to wait to the Q&A session to ask your questions. You can shoot your questions in the comment section, because this is like a chat, so it's not like very formal. So feel free to ask your questions. Yeah. So I think I'll proceed with the agenda for today now. So Robert, I will be asking you a series of questions if you don't mind. But feel free to digress if you want to, because this is like a chat, like I said earlier. So can you tell us about your journey to becoming a lead API documentation writer?
So, I can talk now, right?
Sure.
Right.
Go
So,
ahead.
like I started to say earlier, it's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome.
I hope everyone will find something that's interesting along the talk. So, my journey in becoming a in API writer was sort of lucky in doing it. So I am a tech writer. I'm a journalist by education, and I'm a developer by vocation. I didn't go to school
Okay.
to become a developer. So
Right.
I started out as a journalist. My first job was in tech writing, and I didn't
Okay.
really like it. And I wrote some tools for as a developer. I wrote some tools for myself on my computer, and my boss liked them, and he encouraged me. So eventually, about 6 months after that, I formally became a titled developer. The breakthrough was a buddy of mine. So I was working as a programmer in Houston, and a buddy of
Mm-hmm.
mine who had just moved up to Microsoft called me one day, and he told me that Microsoft is looking for people who are developers but know how to write, so they can write to other developers. And literally within 3 months of that phone call, I was up in Seattle. I moved to Seattle and had joined Microsoft, and I never looked back. This was when I discovered I didn't even know what API writing existed. But when I
Yeah.
found it, I think it was what I was meant to do. I loved it. It was so natural that that I just continued along. Now that course is hard to replicate for others, and I understand that. But we'll talk about that in a moment too. Do,
Yeah. Okay. So that's cool. That's actually cool. I never knew you started with being a journalist, right? So that's really cool. Very nice transition. I studied computer science, so I've always been in the field, the tech field, or yeah, so the IT field. So yeah, it's really cool actually. Then I think I have another question for you. Yeah. So, what inspired you to specialize in API documentation? You sort of covered this earlier, but I think I'll just,
right,
yeah.
right.
So, what inspired you, right, to specialize
It
in API?
was like I said, the combination for me personally was so natural. A lot of the developers, and in fact, developers are known not to be good writers. If I'm ever looking at a developer's resume, I expect misspellings in it. I'm suspicious when they don't. So it's pretty uncommon to get a developer who can write intelligently, clearly, and in a tech writing way to document things. Now, on the other end of the spectrum here, and I'm going off your question a little bit, so if you want to corral me back to it, that's
No,
fine.
that's fine.
So
That's
I
fine. You're first, yeah.
so actually, the most common question I get is, how do I get started in in tech writing? And I want to address that for a moment. So on the other end of this spectrum are tech writers who don't know any programming, and everyone and there's a misconception out there that in order to become an API writer, to I'm sorry. Then, in order to become an API writer, you have to be a developer, and that's not true at all. If you're a tech writer, so API writing, the bottom line, the foundation is tech writing. You have to be able to take in a concept, a complex concept, and clearly state it for whoever your audience is. Um, but if you don't know programming, you should still get started in API writing, if you're at all interested in that. Now that means you'll be at a little disadvantage at the beginning, but if you treat it, and this is the brief version of this, but if you treat it as a craft, learn a little bit each day, and eventually learn some programming, the progression is natural. You'll eventually get to where you need to be. So I want to encourage anyone who's curious, try it. And just because you don't know programming, it should not stop you. So, and what inspired me to specialize in it, it was such, like I said, it was such a natural combination of my world. I love programming. I love talking about programming, but I like communicating it to people, and for them to pay me to do it is just this awesome this awesome thing.
Wow, that's cool. I think that's similar to why should I use the word delve? I don't want to sound chat GPT, but like that's similar to how I started, right? You said something about yeah, something about technical writers always wondering, or should I say, asking the question about whether they should know how to code before getting started in, a career in API documentation, right? And you said they should not be deterred by that, and they should
No.
still go, right? Is that what you meant, or
Yeah,
okay?
if you're interested in the field, by all means explore it. And I hope people are attracted to it. There's a couple things here. So of course the REST APIs are everywhere. Every company has at least one REST API associated with them. So companies know how to hire programmers. In fact, companies often have departments of 50, 60 more or more programmers. The problem is they don't know what an API writer is, and so they'll hire one for the company, for instance. And the problem with that is, and there's an opportunity here, is that there's a huge need for API writers. The classic API writer, maybe a developer converting to writing, or someone like me who's a program writer. There's just not nearly enough out there to make a difference. We have to recruit from tech writers, and like I said, there's a huge demand for API writers. So over the years, I tried selling API writing. It does X, Y, and Z. It's good. The bottom line is there's a 50% pay raise over tech writers. They're in that much demand. So if you're curious, try it with the understanding that at some point you'll have to learn some sort of programming. Now, if I can diverge here for a moment, because what kind of programming you need to know is a topic unto itself. But the brief
Yeah, I was
version,
about to ask that. Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah, I was about to ask that. Yeah.
the brief version of that answer is you don't have to know heavy systems level C#, C++ programming. 80%, 90% of all programming languages are in common. You learn, there's a concept of, the loop, the iteration, variable assignment, decision making that all languages will have in common. So the trick is in learning a language is learn a language that you would use on an everyday basis. Meaning, if you work with websites, then maybe JavaScript is the right the right one. If you work with Word has a has several built-in programming languages. So if you work with Word, learn macros. Learn how macros are constructed, but use it to solve your problem first. So for instance, I almost always have my first task at any job is I write a series of very small programs that takes things that takes a string, for instance, text, and converts it to all uppercase, all lowercase, puts hyphens or underscores, because I use those almost on a daily basis. And the point is, if you use it on a daily basis, two or three things happen. One, you get the tools that you need. Two, you get tools that others may need. Share them. And three, by the very act of writing these codes is going to push you. What I did was cool, but can I do this and the next step? And if you solve that problem, you have to learn you learn something new. That's how you learn a programming language. Now, there's another effect of that too, is if you are learning a programming language, and this is true of any language, you have to learn it, and you have to learn it somehow. You either get a book and learn it, you go to a website and learn it, you sit down with your compiler and just hack out something to see what happens. But the key for all three of these is someone else is going to tell you what to do. If you read a book, they're telling you how to program. They'll give a call. They'll explain the call. They'll explain the parameters. That's an API. If you go to that's an API doc. If you go to a website and learn it through a video, they're doing the same thing, but in a different medium. you're learning an API document. Um, and the important thing about learning API documents is that you are now a user of your own technology. You will learn what you like about the book. What did you learn? What specifically helped you learn and retain something? What didn't you like? What paragraph did you have to reread 4 or 5 times to understand? You are now an API user. You know what you like, you know what you don't like, and you're better off for that because now you can do that in your own writing. For writing an API guide, you say, well, I like having the call name right on top, and the first thing I want to see are the parameters. So that's how you learn. That's how you learn API writing by reading other APIs and implementing it. Reading just isn't enough. You have to sit down and actually implement it with your compiler. Then you see that all the very fine good points and all the things that you don't like. And the secret is you take the things you like and improve on them. You take the things you don't like and improve on them. So the pattern is you take whatever you have and you improve on it so that it's right for you.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really insightful, to be honest. I hope you guys are getting some points or major points or many points from what Robert is saying. We already have a couple of questions in the comment section, but
I
before I
see.
get to before I get to the Q&A session, I'm going to ask the major questions I have. So if your questions get covered while Robert is explaining or answering these questions, that would be nice. If they don't get covered, we'll come back to your question. So yeah, so another question I have for you, Robert, is what are the skills or what key skills are essential for a career in API documentation?
So the key skills. What's going to make you a successful API writer? Great question. So, like I said a minute ago, the bottom line is you have to be a tech writer. You have to be able to take complex ideas and explain it clearly and be understood. And there's a lot of tools. There's a lot of ways to do that. You'll be working with code samples. You may have to write some simple code. But the bottom line, I got, of course, the bottom line is being a tech writer. The second thing is you will have to know some programming at some point. We're writing about programming to programmers, so you can't avoid this point. You have to know their jargon. You have to know how they think. You have to know what's important to them and what's not important to them. Now, if you're starting out, you again, like I said a minute ago, you can learn this as you go. You learn a little bit each day. You go back to the previous day's work and rewrite it, make it more clear. So being a tech writer, some progressive programming experience. I would say don't fret about the tools. Tools for any industry will come and go. If you learn the theory, the rest are just implementation details. So for instance, a lot of people ask me, oh, which is better, Markdown or HTML or OpenDoc. OpenDoc, the one Oxygen uses, XML. And those are all good, and they're all worth learning. Anything you learn, you're going to incorporate into your work process in anyway, and it makes you more versatile. I don't use XML a lot in my normal everyday, but it's good to know when I come across XML, that's not going to be a hindrance. So learn. Markdown is the language du jour. It's the language that the Markdown that everyone's using today. So learn it. Markdown is not complete, so you'll have to know HTML. You'll need in editor to work with this. You're moving in the technical world. You're moving away from Word for for instance, text-based authoring environments to more code-based environments. So you may have to install Microsoft Visual Studio Code. That's the preferred editor of APIs. JetBrains IntelliJ, another outstanding tool. But like I said, they'll come and go. So don't fret, don't worry, don't sweat about the details along the way. Whatever tool you're asked to use or you prefer is fine for starting out with the understanding things are going to change along the way.
Yeah, that's really true because I mean, like technologies keep changing, the needs, market needs, everything keeps changing. So why restrict or limit yourself to one? So just keep an open mind and yeah, don't limit yourself to learning just one thing. You keep learning. I mean, the learning process it's
Yeah.
ongoing. So yeah, I get
And the
that. Thank you.
more
Yeah,
I'm sorry, and the more you know about everything, the
yeah,
better it is for you personally. It makes you more versatile. It makes you more hireable. It makes you the go-to person. You you can do more stuff. So learn everything you can. JSON, a scripting language,
yeah.
Word macros, XML. They're all going to come into play at some point.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So I have another question for you. How important is technical knowledge versus writing skills in this field? This question is actually very important because I've been asked a number of times that by people that are trying to get into the field of technical writing, and they're like, "How technical is this? I mean, do I need to know?" Back to that question, or do I need to know how to code? How much technicality is involved, right? I mean, it's technical writing, so am I going to be doing, do I need more technical knowledge, or is it like a balance? Should I have like technical knowledge and then the writing skill? Like, it's a question I get asked every day actually,
Right.
so yeah.
It's a good question. So a minute ago I said ultimately this is tech writing, and ultimately it is tech writing. You have to have the writing skills. Now I don't know many tech writers who people have become tech writers without liking or knowing a lot of writing skills. That's the job. Again, you're taking a complex idea and you're trying to simplify it to your audience. And I keep saying to your audience because your audience may be developers, it may be other tech writers, maybe executives, PMs. So you have to write for. In other words, they're not always programmers, and you have to learn to write to them. So the bottom line is the writing skills have to be there. If you're struggling with the writing skills, you're going to have trouble with everything else. So I assume, for example, when I'm hiring or looking at resumes, I'm assuming the writing skills are going to be there. Um, and also, I expect everyone to progress along their writing skills. I mean that's just a part of the business. So with that assumed, then it goes into technical knowledge, and this is a journey. I like the way Deborah put it. What is your API journey?
Yeah.
Because it's a never ending. It's a never ending. The
Mm-hmm.
more you know, the better you are. The more powerful of a writer you are. So of
Yeah.
the two, technical knowledge is probably the more important one. But that's a
Yeah.
journey, and that just takes time in getting the experience. No one is expecting you to know all this on the day you're hired, but they
Mm-hmm.
will expect you to be curious enough and
Yeah.
ambitious enough to move along in that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the key takeaways from this is you need technical skills, right? Someone in the comment section, Karthik, I don't know if it's a he or a she, So I'm going to use they. So they said building APIs is a must. I mean, we're talking about API documentation, right? So obviously, you need the knowledge of APIs to be able to document APIs. I mean, that only makes sense. Maybe before this call ends, I could share a resource with you. And if Robert knows other resources, learning resources that you can use to master API documentation, I'm pretty sure he'll like to share, right? So, yeah, so I have one more question for you, Marek. Sorry, Robert. Yeah, so I kept using the name Marek throughout this week, and I don't know why I keep saying Marek. I'm so sorry for calling you Marek. Yeah. All right. So, what are the common challenges faced in API documentation? Because you just talked about the technicalities, right? So, if someone is to venture into this field of API documentation, what should they expect in terms of challenges, right? Yeah.
Actually, let me answer that in a second. I want to complete a thought from the previous
Yeah.
thing. What skills you need. So one of my mottos is you write for yourself, meaning if you don't understand what you're writing, that's justification. Schedule be damned. That's justification for you to stop and learn what you don't understand. If you don't understand it, that's going to be passed on to the user. And if you see yourself as the typical user, then then everything will start falling into place. You explain it to yourself. I may as well just write at the beginning of each paragraph, Robert, comma. This is what you do. So if you write for yourself, you'll get a much better understanding of the topics. Now, what are the common challenges faced in API Doc? There are a considerable number of challenges. One, your own personal skill set. We talked about this a second ago. If you're coming in new to API writing, as from tech writing, you have an entire industry to learn, and unfortunately, you can't pick which topics. You don't always get to pick which topics you want to study. They're thrown at you by the schedule and the product people. So you may be working on one aspect of the API one day, and then next sprint, if you're in an agile, they come across and have a whole new separate topic. Well, you're going to have to learn that and become an expert in it as quickly as possible. But that's purely up to you. That's under your control. What you learn, how you learn it, how fast is something that you can choose to decide. What you can't always choose to decide are some other factors. One, the company may not even know what an API writer is. They just think they need API docs. So I know enough people, tech writers, who were unfortunate enough to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time, and they were told they're going to be API writers, or they got promoted into it. But the boss doesn't understand API writing. And I want to make it clear, this is not tech writing. A lot of people view this as tech writing, and it's not. It's a whole new, it's its own field that with so much dependency on code and developers and programming, it takes on its own characteristics. If your management doesn't know that, or if your management isn't supportive of it, that's going to be a drag on the entire system. For example, they may make schedules way more aggressive than an API writer would. Going up the channel, you have the CEOs. I love vilifying CEOs. I think in terms of API writing, they're the villains in all this, because they don't know what we are. They don't know who we are. They don't know what we do.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
won't always hire. They won't always support. They may hire one writer, one
Mm,
API writer, and then you're stuck. You're an island unto yourself.
yeah. Very
So
true. Very true. That's very true. I can relate to that.
So, and then to complete that, yes, you have the mechanics of writing API. If you're not
Hmm.
used to it, again, you'll probably be using Visual Studio, probably be using Open API, which is a whole different format and thinking that
Yeah,
than tech writers are used
used
to.
to. Yeah,
Then you also have to move over. You have to think like a developer, and that's where the lack of being a developer
comes in.
comes in. You have to think like a developer. What's
Yeah.
important to them? What are the terms they use? So in getting started, there are considerable challenges. Not None of
Yeah.
them are roadblocks. None of them are insurmountable. But just be aware that it's a different kind of writing. It's a different kind of audience.
Yeah. So I think I can add to that. But let me display the next question I have for you on the screen before I add what I want to say. So I think I can add to what Robert just discussed or answered. So basically, I work as a technical writer, and I actually create API documentation for my company. Yeah. So yeah, when you're learning API documentation, you come across what we call open API specification, which is what Robert mentioned, right? It's technical, right? I think it's even more familiar, or should I say, developers are more familiar with the open API spec. So this is something that you will come across when you're venturing into this field of API documentation and learning the syntax, learning how to create open API spec, read open API spec would be a very helpful um, skill to have. And then it's a challenge, right? Because it's technical. This is what I wanted to say. Before I digress. So yeah, if you're coming in from the technical content creation aspect of technical writing, where you just write blog posts, not really technical, right? This might be a challenge for you. And if you're not like a developer or a backend developer, if you haven't worked with APIs before, it might still look very technical and like like a technical jargon, like what we call it. So yeah, so this is one thing you should look out for. And yeah, I think we can now move on to talk about the strategies that you can, take or adopt to overcome these challenges. On to you, Robert.
Ah, so knowing the challenges, then overcoming the challenges should take a should just be a logical approach to each one of those problems individually. I talked about the inexperience of programming. You're going to have to get the experience of programming, and like I mentioned, the best, easiest, and fastest way to learn a programming language is to use one that you can use on an everyday basis to help you personally. That's gonna motivate you. It's gonna help you push your yourself. Um, but other challenges to overcome is that one, everyone is going to tell you what to write. Everyone thinks they're a better writer than you. This is an especially annoying thing. So you may have PMs mail you text to put in there. That's helpful. That seems helpful up front. I generally resist that because the document belongs to you. That the API doc is yours. You own it. Ultimately, you are responsible for everything that goes into it, and you have to maintain that separation for several reasons. One, it pushes you to learn your document and your topics better. If you let people mail you stuff to paste, you don't learn it as much. Two, it needs a consistent voice. You can't have different writers doing things at different in different ways. That's why in part you have style sheets that help
Yeah,
to,
style
to,
guides. Yeah.
to help to help ease that out. Um, the
So sorry,
schedule.
sorry
I'm
to
sorry.
interrupt you, Robert. Sorry. So
Oh,
like,
sure.
what situation where a technical writer doesn't have like a style guide to follow? Like, do we create the style guide ourselves?
Absolutely, Absolutely.
So
There's no
what
law.
standard?
Well,
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's no law that says a company has to have only one style guide. And like I said, this is a very different writing style. So
Yeah.
you write a style guide pretty
Mhm.
much as you go. When you come across a new topic, update the style guide over time. It will write itself. I know a lot of people
Mhm.
who worry about writing style guides and do it all up front. And doing it all up front is
Yeah.
not going to work. You're going to encounter things you didn't anticipate. So
Yeah.
for instance, my style guide, and I write our company's API style guides. Um, I don't use the word you. I prohibit the word you, which is very different than what the copywriters or tech writers. In tech writing, you're writing to someone
Mm.
who's going to follow your steps. You don't
Yeah.
have that, and that's a subtlety. But you don't have that in API writing. You don't really know who you're writing to. In fact, real often, I'd say 90% of the time that code is executed, it's
Mm.
executed in a script. Now,
Yeah.
that's just a one small example. But you will need a style guide. But again, develop that as you go. It'll be much more in the end. It'll be much more robust and um, and um, and
Yeah.
complete.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, like, what best practice did you follow for creating clear and effective API documentation? So, right now, okay, we have like, and we have let me see, we have like, so let's say foundational information about API documentation and all that, an introduction, and then we've gotten like insight into some of the common challenges that you face when venturing into the field of API documentation, right? So, what best practices now do we follow when we're actually creating this API documentation? When we're brought a task to create an API documentation, how do you even go about it? Like, what are the best ways or the best approaches to use? Yeah.
So again, you have to start thinking like a developer, and what that means for a good example is developers don't read documentation; they skim, and so you have to design your documentation with that in mind. Real often, they will look at your um, at your reference guide. They're looking for one thing and one thing only. What is the second parameter of this call? Is this field a number or a string? Is there a limitation on number, for instance? Will it only accept 0 through 5 or something? And this is a big change for tech writers who are used to everyone reading their documentation top to bottom, left to right, one through steps one through 10. So the implication of knowing no one is going to read your documentation is you have to make things you have to make things easy to find and skimmable. So, for instance, by my style guide, by my policy, the first sentence of every the introduction to every field or call, for instance, is one very brief sentence. This call does X. No more. Don't say I say this call does X if you pass the client ID and they're going to print it or something. No. This call does X. One that's a short sentence, they can skim it. If it's not the right call for them, they will love you for saving them time. They don't have to
Yeah.
read a paragraph to figure out
Yeah.
it's
But
not.
yeah, I have a question about what you just said about saying
Oh,
when you're like describing endpoints, right? You'd be like, okay, this call does this, and even when the call is being called by an ID, you don't have to mention that. But
no, 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 I didn't say you didn't have to mention it. I said
okay,
don't mention it in the first sentence, in
like
in the first paragraph.
I'm talking about a situation where you're like documenting an endpoint, right? And you're like writing like the short blob, or should I say short line description, right, for that endpoint. So in such situation, it's just one single line, right?
The
Right?
the first sentence is a
Yeah.
single line, the
Right.
introduction.
Yeah.
Right. Now, you have to continue. So the trick to this is, yes, they're only looking for one bit of information. The
Yeah.
problem is you don't know what that one bit of information is. So the documentation has to be complete. I'm not saying stop at one sentence. Everything
Yeah.
has to be there, but you don't know what they're looking for. So everything has to be in short, easily skimmable, scannable. So the first sentence, this call does X. That's
Yeah.
all it does. Now you add the second most important point in the next paragraph. Um,
Okay.
the client ID is required, and that comes from,
Yeah.
so you tell them that.
Okay.
Then you take the third, then you take the fourth, then you can add. So you're going to end up with complete information. Now, if I can
Okay.
digress, I know you want to ask a question, but
I actually have a question.
bear with me one
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
second here.
No, go
So
ahead.
and darned if I forgot what it was. Sorry.
Yeah.
What's your question?
Okay, so still about the endpoint description, right?
Hmm.
So you have like an API documentation, right? You have the API reference, right? You have the one where the developers just want to scan through like and get information and get out, right? So in for the way I do my or the way I create my own API documentation, right? The approach I take is I describe the endpoint in one single line, right? Just one single line. So if this endpoint allows yeah, and then if it's by ID, it allows this by this ID, right? Just one single line, straight to the point and concise.
Right.
Then when I'm like, let's say it's a create endpoint, like a post endpoint, a post method endpoint, right? And then I have yeah. So then I have sorry, that's my Slack notification. I don't know if you heard it. But yeah. So yeah, so and then I have my, let's say, request body table, right? Or like my query parameters, for instance, or my request body parameter, or my path parameters, right, in a table. And then that's where I have my, let's say, the client ID or one ID, right? And then I'm describing the ID in that table. That's where I now tell them,
Right.
okay, this ID, this is what this ID means, right? So what I was trying to say is, are you meant to like include that long amount or paragraph, right, in the short description, or you're meant to do that in a table? Then when you have like the API reference section where you can now go in depth, or would I call that an API reference? The developer documentation where you can now go in depth and explain those features, right? Or maybe let me call that the glossary section where you have explanation of each of those terminologies, and then you can go in depth. And then, so if the developer wants more information, they can always search it, do a quick search on the glossary section of documentation, and then get information they're looking for. So that was what I was trying to say. I think we're kind of on the same page,
Right.
but
So,
yeah. So
ultimately, everything has to be explained. You're right. Whatever format you're using, whether Open API format is perfect for this because it requires you to break down every parameter, every field, every response. That has to be there. No getting around that. But you can keep the same format. So, like I said, the first sentence of every item I write is very brief. So if I'm in if I'm in the payload section or the response section, it still is the same thing. Unit cost. It returns the call returns a unit cost. You still have to say this field does X. This returns the cost to the user. Then then you repeat it. Add this second fact. Is there anything more significant to that? Some fields, for instance, have a limited list of values that they can put in there, and that has to be listed. So everything, but so back to my earlier point, everything is going to be included in the documentation because you don't know what fact they're looking for. But you have to make it skimmable. You have to make it easily scanned and easily found. Another common practice I do, I prohibit the use of acronyms. I hate acronyms. No one will know what there's a very small list of acronyms I'll accept. API, HTML, those are all fine. But any other acronyms, and I say that because now users can do a search and come into documentation from any point and any angle. So if they're looking for a specific word, they get to a section and they say, and it says this parameter does a TCB on a TRD. They're not going to know. You can't assume they're going to know. Spell out everything, but you get that from experience. You'll eventually find out that no one knows what TPS really means, and even if it is a common term, you have to write for the person who's new at this too. Now, so those are all common practices, but you learn them. You get to learn it along the way too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's true. So, like, I have one last question for you before I go into the Q&A section, because this is already 1 o'clock and we're supposed to like be rounding up now.
No,
So, what
I want
advice?
to talk more.
Sorry.
I want to talk more.
Oh,
But
yeah,
yeah,
right. So like that wouldn't be fair because like your time zone, like it's like I think it's around 7 a.m., right? So
it
like
is.
you're not started to work for the day, and it's 1 p.m. my time and I'm supposed to be working. So
I know. So
yeah.
your last question.
All right, from just me, anyways. I'm still going to get to the Q&A session. So, what advice would you give someone looking to start a career in API documentation? Right.
Okay, and that probably is the second most common question. Everything I've said, I believe in. I think are good practices, but it's not going to matter if you don't get a job in
Yeah.
this. So this is a tough question to answer, but
Yeah.
I suggest people starting out. They learn a language on their own for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. Not because learning the language itself is the important thing. It's
Yeah.
reading other people's documentation.
Yeah.
Learn how others write it, and learn what works for you. Why doesn't that work? Why does that work? It'll put you in the position of the client.
User. Yeah.
There's a lot of open API, not open API, open source projects out there. Find one and make edits to their documents. Now, it
Yeah.
may or may not be accepted, but that's not the point. I mean, it's cool if it would be accepted. The point
Yeah.
is, you're now writing to impress someone enough to like your work, and that's
Mhm.
going to push you a little bit. It's going to push you a lot.
Mhm.
You're trying to live up to someone else's expectations now.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, um, if learn these other things. Learn Postman. I've not
Yeah.
mentioned Postman yet. It's a very common
Don't
API
share.
testing tool.
Yeah.
But learn Postman ahead of time. It'll give you there's so many advantages to them, but I won't list it. And finally, apply aggressively. If you're at a company, ask your boss. If you can't transfer in. It's one of those situations that you learn swimming by being thrown into a river. It's unfortunate at first, but it gets you there, and
Mhm.
you have a fighting chance. Ask your boss. Apply for any position that you can get. When you apply, a lot of people can't even write job descriptions about APIs. They're all over the place. But the key thing to look for is if they want less than 5 years experience, 2, 3, or 4, that
Yeah.
generally is an entry level job.
Yeah.
If they ask for 2 years experience, they don't mean that. They mean entry level. And if you've done your homework, you can it'll be a struggle at first. I mean, don't get me wrong; it's going to be a challenge. But
Yeah.
if you get in, you're at least in for a fighting chance.
Mhm. Mhm. True. So Thank you for that. We have one question from Vanessa. What role should AI play in API documentation? What can AI do or not do when it comes to API documentation? Please, if you have any questions, please can you drop them in the comment section because we're currently right now in the Q&A session. So yeah. So what
So
role? Yeah, go ahead.
API, I'm sorry, AI is AI, yeah, is overstated in the tech writing field. If anyone's thinking they're going to be replaced by AI, it's not going to happen in anytime anytime soon.
Yeah.
Fortunately, AI hasn't been pervasive yet in API docs. I've seen tools and they are just marginal at best.
Yeah.
You have AI tools that can go into a code base, and for example, um, if there's a field called phone number, it comes
Yeah.
back and says this is the phone number. Well,
Yeah.
that doesn't help me at all, guys. So AI just is not there yet for tech writing. Even when I'm writing prose like articles, I'll go to AI and see
Yeah.
what it thinks I should write. And by the time I rewrite it so it's in my voice and correct the nuances, it's like I may as
You're
well
good at writing it
have
yourself,
done it from
right? Yeah.
scratch.
Yeah.
I would not worry. I would look into it. I love AI for coding. I can ask it how to code this, and it returns the exact code that
Yeah.
works the first time. But for writing, I don't think it's there yet.
Hmm. So I hope that answers your question, Vanessa. So I have another question. Oh, everyone is saying I should let you talk more. I really want to let you talk more. Like I'm really enjoying the conversation as well as so many other persons on the call. Everyone is enjoying the conversation. But yeah, at some point we have to round up. But yeah, you can talk more. Yeah. Yeah. So we have another question. I'm scrolling through the comment section to see. Okay, yeah.
I
So we have a question from Toby. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I do want to answer one question quickly. Which is better, Postman API or REST API?
Okay.
They're not
Okay.
competitors.
Okay.
Postman is not really an
Yes.
API; it's a tool,
Yeah, it's so.
and it's a tool to test REST API. They're not competitors. In fact, I require all of my writers to make every call at least once in Postman.
Yeah. Hmm. So basically, I don't know if you got what Robert said. So Postman is a tool you can use to test your APIs, document your APIs, write unit. I think write tests for your APIs and see the response live, right? Make calls and all that. Make calls to endpoints, right? And see the responses. Save the example response or save your request and have like a collection. Allows you to have like collection. You can also share your APIs with your team members via Postman. It has a lot of functionalities. You can look it up. I shared the link to Postman in the comment section so you can look it up. I also shared a link to a learning resource on our writerbewriting.com to learn API documentation. You can check the comment section and you find it. So also REST API is just like an architecture, just like you can read up about REST APIs. Yeah. So
Somebody mentioned I saw in the comment list somebody
okay.
mentioned, well, what about SOAP APIs? And SOAP is an
Yeah.
alternative to REST, but everything I've said doesn't apply only to REST. There are general comments that applies to writing any API documentation.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for that. I am going trying to go back to the question I displayed previously, the one from where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, I have to scroll back up. Um why am I not seeing it? Um just give me a moment. I'm trying to look for this particular question. I don't want to miss anyone's question. Um
They're all good questions. I want to answer them all.
yeah, I don't want to miss anyone. So I'm trying to like search. I don't know. I'm still looking for it. Okay, yeah, from Toby. From Toby. Yeah. So Toby is asking. Toby Kasim is asking, how can we or what? Sorry, is Toby Nigerian, or I'm saying like Kazim? So like, I don't think it's Nigerian, right? I pronounced it the Nigerian way. I said Toby, so I don't know if I'm correct. So please correct me if I'm wrong. So he's asking, how can we, or what should we put on a portfolio when looking for a role or job? This is actually a good question. So like when
Good.
looking for a job, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Question. So let me I'm deciding how best to answer this. So in order to have a portfolio, you have to have something to show that's obvious. In order to have
Yeah,
something to show, you have to work on an API. So a couple ways you can create an API from scratch. That's a little hard. You can take someone's existing API and improve it, change it, so it's more your feel.
yeah,
And because they're not going to be looking, you won't be judged on actually making the API calls. You're not a developer. You're not advertising yourself as a developer. You're advertising yourself that you can deliver information clearly and effectively. So if you
true.
take someone else's open API, and you can Google that, um, and improve on it, change enough so that it looks like yours. Now you have something to show. If you can use an open source project, you can point to the sections you wrote. Um, and the cool thing about Open API as a format is you can also convert it to HTML. And once you have HTML, you can now post it to websites or send it around to people. I would not advocate doing this in Word though. Word is just not for formatted or structured enough. Now, um, Deborah, I'm posting.
Okay. You're
I'm going
open.
to post something in the private chat. This is a
Okay.
URL to an article I wrote for people who don't have experience with API writing and want to explore it. If you could post it
I
to the
just, yeah, I just
to
did.
the channel.
Yeah,
So if you're at all curious how to get started and what the work means,
yeah,
look at this article. It's brief. It's 4 steps, but it'll give you a foundation of what's going on, and you might even walk away with a sample. That's what reminded me about that.
mm-hmm.
You may be able to use that exercise as an example.
Thank you so much, Robert. I'm sure, I'm pretty sure that article will be very helpful. I hope you guys can see the link in the comment section. I just shared it so you can read up the article on how to get started in API documentation. So we have a question from Karthik Sundaram. I hope I did not ruin your name. Okay. How to maintain versioning in API?
That's a pretty advanced question.
Question. Yeah. I mean, I
That
don't think we
moves
can take it
that
now. We
moves
can.
past what an API doc is. Um,
Yeah.
in brief, the API documentation writers don't have to worry about versioning. The developers
Yeah.
will do that for you. Now, for the
Yeah.
individual documents, I do have a timestamp that I can say, oh yeah, that fact was included in the June 16th update. But I don't think that's the versioning that you're talking about. I think what you're talking about is when the APIs get updated from V1 to V2. And so, and that is not a capricious decision. There's a lot of implications to that. And the development team will have to decide when they want to move to a new version. And once they do it, then you're obligated to follow. I would not worry about versioning.
Versioning, right? Yeah. Okay, so I have one last question for you. I missed this question because I was trying to like round up. So, how can technical writers transition into API documentation? I think this is the last question we will take
Oh,
since there are no other questions in the comment section. So, how can
so,
technical writers transition?
oh.
Yeah.
So I mentioned this earlier. In fact, in a way, this whole talk was about transitioning tech writers into API docs. So just understand that it's a different kind of writing. Two or three things. It's a different kind of writing. You're writing to developers. Not only are you writing to developers, almost all the developers are going to be more experienced and know more than you do. It's intimidating to start in that regard. But
Yeah.
understand it's a different environment. It's not tech writing. That's why you have to think like a developer. Now, one instance, for example, about how this is not tech writing is that I've always said API docs are infinitely deep, meaning
Mm.
you can add as much information as you have time to add to it. In the tech writing world, you often pick a simple case of a
Yeah.
login window. There's two text boxes and a submit button. There's really only, and this is an absurdly simple case, but really there's only so much that you can write about that, and you
Yeah.
can modify the text, but it's basically there's only so much text. That's
Mm.
not true in the API world. You can always add more detail. So it's not a question of when I'm done with this chapter or topic. It's how complete do you want it before I come to a stopping point. So
Yeah.
your manager may give you an assignment. You have 2 months to write about this, and your response would have to be, in 2 months I can get it 20% done. Is that
Yeah.
what you want? And then
Mm.
you negotiate. So understand that it's not tech writing. It's its own requirements, and ultimately you treat it as a craft. We've all heard of hungry artists sale, where a bunch of artists are selling their paintings for for miserably cheap. You've never heard of a starving craftsman sale. Plumbers don't go
Yeah.
hungry because they're always in demand. So if you
Yeah.
treat it as a craft, then you'll learn as
Always.
you go, and you'll be more versatile. You can change jobs for yourself, and you'll be more of a resource for your company. They're getting better documentation, and better documentation means they're going to get less support calls. They're going to get outsiders are going to bug the development team less. We're going to spend less on evangelism, stuff like that.
Yeah. One last thing. When we talk about technicalities involved in API documentation, right? I Oh, okay. So yeah, we have one more question. How API does catch. So what I was saying was, when we talk about the technicalities involved in API documentation, right? How you need to learn the technical skills you need to have, like in terms of programming, right? So like the scripting language, specifically the scripting language to have. So which of them do you advise someone should to go for,
Um,
like Python? Which other one? Do you understand? Like, yeah,
Again, they're all good, and that is such a cheap answer. Um, Python is a great. So there are going to be inevitably tasks that you do over and over again. For example, at release time, we have to make copies of our original documents. We have to rename them. We have to put them in very specific network locations. We have to
yeah,
send email out. Um, so it's not really document. It's not content related, um, but all those things are easily scriptable, especially if you copy a file and move it to a new location.
yeah,
So Python is perfect for that. Yes, Python can be as complicated as you want it to be, but it can also be as simple as you want it to be. So
Mm-hmm.
write a script in Python to simply copy and rename a file. Ask Chat GPT how to do that. Great start. And
Yeah. So
and then and
you
then
have to go
just
ahead. So you
then,
have to go
then
ahead and ask ChatGPT.
I'm sorry.
No, I was like, I'm telling them that they have like a go ahead
Oh,
to ask ChatGPT.
so that's Python is a great example. I use Word a lot, so I use Word's built-in scripting language. It's called
Yeah.
VBA, Visual Basic for automation. I have, as a office programmer, I have complete control over the content. I can make the content do anything I want, and that is such a powerful powerful thing. I can parse long paragraphs. I can insert images with mathematical precision. um,
Mm-hmm.
so VBA is also a very good. Don't overlook there's some other things there's tools called text expanders, and I'll mention one auto hotkey. You window users are lucky, and well, text expander does exactly that. You can give it an acronym, and whenever it's encountered, it'll automatically expand it. Yeah, that's sort
Yeah.
of a cool automation. But with um, but with auto hotkey, for instance, they include a scripting language. So again, you can go into a document, look for things, manipulate it somehow, copy, delete, make a new file, and that's considered light. That's considered light scripting. A lot of people don't even consider it scripting, but it is.
Yeah. Okay. So,
So there's actually
quick
a
question.
lot.
That question, Kathy, can you I don't think we can take the question now. So you could probably do like Google search on that because this talk is focused on API documentation. So you can probably do a Google search on that. And I think that would take that's like a conversation that will probably take long. So yeah, so I think we've come to the end finally. We're supposed to finish by 1 p.m., but turns out we had a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Robert. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed the conversation, right? And I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy the conversation. Please let me know in the comment section if you actually enjoyed the conversation, right? I've seen a lot of nice comments. So thank you so much, Robert. Yeah. So I think we've come to the end. Do you have any should I say last words? Do you have any last words for us before we
So
call it a day?
I absolutely love what I do. This was I think this is a great field. I encourage everyone to at least look into it. May not be right for everyone, and I understand that, but at least look into it. It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's in demand. It's as limitless as you want to go.
Yeah. Nice. So Karen is saying thank you, Deborah and Robert. I enjoyed hearing more about API documentation and requirements. It was great hearing your perspectives. Victoria is saying interesting session. Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, Robert. So yeah, thank you so much, Robert. So I think we can call it a day now. So yeah, that's
Well,
about it.
uh,
Right? Okay.
again, thanks for having me. We went over a little bit, and I'll
Yeah.
take that. I'll gladly take that blame.
No, no, it's fine. It's actually fine, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So have an amazing day, Robert.
Nope. Thanks for
Bye
having me.
guys. Yeah. Bye.